It's International Women's Day. Are we good? What good is music? What good is melody? If it ain't possessing something sweet. It ain't the music, it ain't the melody. There's something else that makes that tune complete. It don't be the same, it ain't got the same. Do up, 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 do up. It's all the same. All you gotta do is say, do up, 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 do up. Makes no difference if it's sweet or high. You gotta give everything you got. Oh no, it's all nothing. If it ain't got nothing. Do up, 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 do up. Yes, here we are, celebrating International Women's Day 2021. Am I able to? But we're still gonna have some fun. Get inspired. Let me see your reason up to the energy here. Woo! Makes no difference if it's sweet or high. You gotta give that difference everything you got. Oh no, we don't need a thing if it ain't got the same. Do up, 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 do up. Do what? Do up, do up, do up, do up, do up, do up. Do up, do up, do up, do up, do up, do up, do up. Woo! Thank you, everyone. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. That was an amazing way to be admitting everybody into our International Women's Day. So thank you very much, and you'll be joining us for another song in a couple of minutes.
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if we're ready to get this event started, if everybody's in. So I'd just like to say a huge, huge thank you to everybody for joining us today for International Women's Day 2021. Oh my goodness, what a year we've had. Thinking where we've come from, where we are now, and I need to also mention that we are recording this event, so if you don't want to be seen, turn your cameras off. Hopefully we'll get some good snippets that we can keep sharing on social media. I know we're going to have a wonderful time, and I would like to say we should reflect on the past 12 months. And last year we were celebrating in Tankersley Manor. We had a large crowd of people and celebrating, hugging, embracing each other. Very different this year, but I'm still glad that everybody's managed to join us. And I mentioned last year I shared about the tiger and the monkey. Well, I've certainly had that tiger rattled around quite a lot this past 12 months, and I think we've all had those challenges, and we've all had that tiger that's been part of that fighting spirit for everybody that's joining us today. I know there's been ups, downs, and bits in between, which is why we wanted a day to just a couple of hours just to say thank you, celebrate, share what International Women's Day is all about, which leads us nicely into our first piece. We've got a live piece of music again from Abby, who sang us in, and I don't know what song she's going to sing for us now, but I'm sure it's going to be just as uplifting as what we've just heard. So if we'd like to hand over to Abby for your next song, that would be fabulous.
Hi, can you hear me again?
I can hear.
Yes, fabulous. Right, okay. So this next song is taken from my Electric 80s set. I do quite a few different sets from a lot of different eras, and I thought this one would be good for today because this one is called Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I come home in the morning like my mama said, when you gonna live your life right. Oh, mama dear, we're not the fortunate ones, because they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have fun. Phone rings in the middle of the night while your body is waiting. You're gonna live your life right. Oh, what I did, you know you're still number one because they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have that's what they want. Some fun. When the working day is done, oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Wanna have fun. Some boys, they beautiful girl, they hide away from the rest of the world. But I wanna be the one that wanna see the sun. 'Cause girls, they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have. That's all they really want. Some fun. When the working day is done, oh, girls, they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have fun. Girls wanna have fun. Girls wanna have fun. Girls wanna have fun. Girls, they wanna have. We just wanna. We just wanna. We just wanna. We just wanna. When the working day is done, oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Oh, we girls just wanna have. That's all we really want. Some fun, some fun. When our working day is done, oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Wanna have fun. Oh, we girls just wanna have fun. Thank you very much. Oh, I can see her clapping. Thank you.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you again, Abby, for joining us for a bit of uplifting and a bit of happy and clappy, and it's been wonderful. Thank you, and we'll see you later on at the end of our afternoon. Thank you so much. So after that uplifting experience, I think it'd be nice to go back to reflection on the past sort of 12 months, and we're going to invite Joanna Dawson from Dawson Radford Solicitors to do we've called it Life of Lockdown because we've all had different experiences. And I think that when I first spoke to Joanna after the lockdown began, where she was then, how we all were then, and where we were in the middle and where we're at the end is an experience that I think you'll probably resonate with quite a few of you. So over to you, Joanna.
Thank you. Thanks, Lyndsay. Hopefully after that such positivity, I'm not going to ruin it all now, but we'll see how we go. And it's funny, isn't it, that we're almost a year into this new way of living. And I remember last year's International Women's Day at Tankersley, and it was such a lovely day. Like Lyndsay said, you know, we were all there together, hugging and kissing, and nobody, you know, really sort of knew what was about to happen. And in the evening, I attended an accountants dinner at the Cllr Hall in Sheffield, and quite a few of the larger accountancy firms had pulled the plug on employees attending because it was a large gathering. And I remember thinking at the time, are they being a bit over the top about this? Whilst at the same time, I think getting a bit of a sinking feeling that something big was about to happen. And it did. We tuned in to listen to Boris obsessively at 5 p.m, who told us with very little exception that we had to stay at home. And suddenly we were working from home, we were queuing up to get in the supermarket, and worst of all, homeschooling children who, despite everything their teachers told us at parents' evening, were possibly the worst pupils ever. I think the first few weeks, if not months for me, were ones of sheer panic. I run my own business, and I was convinced that this was the end. I help my clients buy and sell businesses. Who on earth would do that in a pandemic? Work would dry up, clients would disappear, and I'd lose my staff. I furloughed as many as I could and battened down the hatches, expecting the worst. But it didn't happen. We got busier, and now there are only 3 of us, not 8. Panic. I probably should explain my personal situation at the time as well. I'd separated from James, my partner, but that had happened the summer before. But because of the housing market and the buying process, I hadn't been able to move out. So I was still living in the family home and was due to move out at the end of March, but obviously all of that couldn't happen. James works in construction, so after a couple of weeks at home, he was back out to work and I was at home running the business and battling with the kids. And they say, don't they, that all good relationships are like partnerships, in that we all do something different and bring something to the party. But except now, James was going out to work, earning for his future, and life hadn't really changed for him. He got up each morning, popped off to work, and I was at home with the boys, homeschooling and trying to run the business. And the only difference was that I was actually at home to do the laundry and cook the meals. And the resentment and feeling of unfairness, frankly, got a bit unbearable. And I think that just set the tone for a summer of just feeling an unbearable sense of unfairness. Sure, there were positives. I remember listening to Rishi announce the business rates grant and the VAT deferment and actually sobbing at the TV because I was so grateful that I was getting some help. And the weather was nice. There were bike rides and walks with the family, you know, walking the dog until he started limping from all the overexercise. I think it's fair to say I spent a lot of time staring into space, not really knowing what to do first. I also spent a lot of time looking out of my home office window, waving to my friends who were walking past in their sunglasses and sundresses, catching a tan. I spoke to my furloughed employees who were sat out in the garden in their new inflatable hot tubs, loving the summer. Everyone seemed to be outside, enjoying the weather, yet here I was, pale, devoid of tan, sat on endless Zoom calls and doing the admin. Then schools started opening back up for key workers. I run my own business. I'm responsible for the livelihoods of other people. Surely I'm a key worker. No, Joe, you're not. Doesn't matter that you rushed off your feet like the proverbial fly trying to do the work of 4 people. You're a lawyer, but you don't quite meet the criteria of what a key worker is. You're not a key worker. You can't send your kids to school. But so-and-so down the road can, who works part-time because she's a cleaner in a hospital. And the other lady down the road, she does my job, but she works in a food factory, so she can go back. And it all just seemed really unfair. I was busy as well, but who was helping me? The teacher would call me and ask what the boys had been doing. Not much, I'd say, trying to avoid telling her about the full-on fight they had in the other room while I was on a Zoom call the previous day. Is there anything we can do to support you? Yes, I'd say, tell their dad to do his fair share of the childcare. Get them back in school. And she'd just laugh. But I was serious. And I began to feel horrible about myself for feeling the way I did about other people. I always thought that I saw other people's points of view probably too much and compromised myself instead. But it just seemed to get worse. I'm a company director, so I couldn't claim a self-employment grant. I clearly couldn't furlough myself as my job was still very much there. And I started hearing about things that other people were claiming and grants they were receiving. And I started to feel really, really upset about it. Of course, I got no idea of their predicaments and of their situations. They might have been absolutely at breaking point, but at the time, I just couldn't see it. My furloughed friends were starting to get bored. What boredom? What's that? I'd love to be bored just for a day. Again, I'd failed to see that those who were furloughed were probably really worried about their job security, stressed by the uncertainty and worried about the prospects of having to find another job. But slowly things began to open up. I moved house, I had a newish start. We returned to the office and to school, and a new normal started to emerge. My feelings lifted as I was able to get stuck into new things, albeit with a certain degree of exhaustion and lack of motivation at this point. I was coming back to the office not refreshed after a 6-month break. I'd still be working every single day without holidays or time off. As schools reopen again today, the weather continues to improve and slowly things start to reopen. I think there's a sense of optimism, which I hope continues. I really do, without further setbacks. I've come to realise that the feelings that I had last year were just human nature. They don't make me a bad human. We all felt the same, except we all felt differently. We all had a different situation to deal with, and often saw others having what we thought was the better deal. Some of us had financial stability. Some of us didn't. Some of us had work. Some of us didn't. Some of us had our children safe at home. Others had no option but to send them to school. And it's become a bit cliched now, I think, but we all truly have different boats in the same storm. So if you resented your friends for having it easy, I hear you. If you resented your own staff for being furloughed and getting a tan in the garden while you were stuck in the office, I hear you. If you resented your husband for getting up each morning and trotting off to work like nothing had ever happened, I hear you. If you're absolutely sick to the back teeth of hearing about grants that you can't claim for, I hear you. And when you see people making scrapbooks of their lockdown memories when all you want to do is erase everything that happened in the last 12 months, I hear you too. Life isn't fair, and sometimes it isn't kind. And if you're a working mum with school-aged children, I think it's fair to say life has been particularly hard these past 12 months. But look at us, we're still here. Probably a bit greyer with more lines before the hairdressers and the Botox ladies open up, but we're still here. And we've come through it, and we've learned as a result. We've shown resilience and the ability to adapt, but I'm still not going to use the word pivot. I've learned that I can't run on empty, and sometimes I just need to stop, despite clients screaming down the phone. They don't really scream. I've learned that we can change in a matter of seconds, and we don't really need anyone else's permission to do that. I've also learned that people will let us down, and we can feel resentful, but that's okay. We go again, we accept their shortcomings because we all have flaws, and we move on. It's not worth getting upset about. So today on International Women's Day, we remember that we can choose to challenge. We can challenge situations that aren't fair. We can challenge assumptions that we make and are made about us. But also remember that sometimes we just have to roll our sleeves up, get stuck in and get the job done, because we're women and that's what we do.
Thank you, Joanna, for sharing that. And when you were saying we can hear you, yes, we can hear you. You know, I think a lot of us had similar experiences, and to share that, I really appreciate that, to open up your life and share it with us. And yes, we can choose to change and choose to challenge, and yes, we can still be upset about certain things. I think that it's all about how we feel and sharing that. You know, we're all having those similar experiences, so thank you very much for sharing that with us. So having listened to your story and little parts of my story, I think it's now time where we need to feel a little bit of nourish. And I know we're going to hand over to Hannah Butler, and she's going to start our presentation on how to nourish ourselves. So over to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Lyndsay, and thank you, Jo. I just want to say it felt very real. So thank you. That was just lovely. To listen to your story. So yeah, humbling. So thank you. What I'm going to ask you to do first of all is I'm just going to ask you to kind of just centre yourselves really. And this is not because we're going to engage in any mindfulness activities or anything like that, but I want you to be incredibly present as we move through not only this next session, but all of today, which I'm already feeling, and I know people talk about Zoom as though it's something that, you know, we don't get and you know, we can't, you know, communicate emotion, but I think, you know, I'd argue that we can, because I would argue that we've all been able to feel something today. So I'm going to invite you just to kind of think about where your lovely bones are just resting today on your chair, and thinking about where you are, and actually claiming a little bit of restorative space for yourself as I start our presentation. So I just want you to start to think about that as I share the screen with you. So can I just have a little thumbs up if you can see Nourish and Flourish? Wonderful, thank you everybody. So yeah, just think about that space that you're in. And just think about what you want from today for you. How are you going to claim that space and begin that restoration for 2021? So this is a little session about restorative practice for ourselves and for the people that are around us, and reflecting and reclaiming our inner voice and emerging stronger. While we're all sort of thinking about that, I just want to say a thank you to Helen Smith, who has partnered with me on this. And what I am going to describe it as holding each other's hands as we've built these two Nourish and Flourish sessions. And so I just want to really just say a huge appreciation to Helen for her support over these last few weeks while we've done that. I don't know if you want to say anything, Helen, at this point.
Just thank you, Hannah. That feeling's completely mutual. You've been an absolute tower of strength to me. As lots of people know, I'm having a challenging time at the moment with a very poorly mama, but I've loved working with you, Hannah, and just thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Thank you. My name's Hannah Butler, and I'm from a company called Census Coaching, and I'm a professional coach, and I'm accredited with the EMCC at Senior Practitioner, sorry. And I am their Director of Knowledge Exchange, providing one-to-one coaching and team coaching. And then very often I get asked, what is coaching? Because it's one of those really strange professions that people kind of, you know, it feels a bit woolly, and it can feel a bit fluffy at times. I would argue that it's absolutely not any of those things. And for me, the way that I would always describe it is, and for those of us that take our Christmas lights out at the beginning of December, and we start to try to unravel those lights. So it either think of Christmas lights, or if Christmas lights doesn't work for you, think about that huge extension cable that you get out of the garage, and you have to wrestle with it, and there's knots in it, and there's kinks in it, and there are broken bits that we have to mend. And I would say for me, that's what coaching is. Coaching is somebody who sits alongside you as a professional while you go through the process of thinking about those knots, about that. Somebody else referred to it as a pee in the bed. You know, while you think about what is that pee in my bed, that's as in a little green pea, I think, not the other kind, folks. So think about them Christmas lights and how we might want to start to unravel them. And today, I'm kind of hopefully going to give us a bit of a toolkit as well in terms of how we can think about that, and really bouncing off what Jo said as well, that we have all got these skills. So why coaching for me? And coaching is and has always been a huge privilege. And the reason it's a privilege is because I get to sit alongside somebody and enable them to tell their story. and I get to be a witness to that. And I also get to join them in their map of the world and their experience, not my experience. So it's not giving advice, it's about you and your experience, and being able to facilitate that environment and being able to enable them to tell the story. And like I say, and really engage with their map of the world and what their map of the world is. And like I say, you know, Jo's expressed her map of the world so beautifully today, and what that meant. And actually, at that point in time, she found it really difficult to see anybody else's map of the world too. But over time, that those doors have started to open again, you know, and it starts to make us feel really differently about our own experience. And so despite having spent thousands and thousands on coach training, and you know, and working incredibly hard to be the best professional I possibly can be, what I would say is coaching skills, we've all got them. We've all got them and we all use them. And you don't have to go as far as I've gone to develop your professional skills. We can all improve the quality of our conversations, and we can all engage in coaching skills. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to invite you to fine tune some of our beautiful everyday skills that we use. So one of the skills, or one of the practices that I use, and I use quite a lot when we are thinking about what it means to nourish ourselves. So what is it that I need? What do I do in my life? And as I'm talking about this, I am going to ask you to kind of think whether today, when you've got up this morning, are you above the line or are you below the line? And thinking to yourself, what might have triggered above the line and below the line? And I can give you an example for myself. One example that I take that is above the line is I have a beautiful grandson who lives with me and his grandpa. And in the morning, he'll come into my room, and if I'm asleep, and he'll come up and I'll say, "Good morning, beautiful." And that's as much as it takes to put me above the line. But I actually then, I'm really conscious about how do I maintain myself above the line? And what happens when I know that I've dipped below that line and actually I need to do some work to get me above the line? And this isn't kind of Pollyanna fluffy stuff thinking either, in the sense that what I want to say about that is that it's important that, like, you know, and I'm going to go back to you, Jo, is that we acknowledge our pain and we know where our pain is and the pain that we are experiencing. And we don't deny ourselves of that as well. You know, we would never, ever say ignore the pain, but it's what do I need to do with that? How, you know, like, does it need nurturing at this moment in time? And do I need to be incredibly kind to myself? Or do I actually, like Jo said, you know, kind of buckle up and get on, and actually I need to kind of jump above that line again? So as I'm saying that, just think to yourselves, am I above the line? Am I below the line? We're going to be moving into breakout groups in just a second. And what I'd like you to think about as we go into those breakout groups is being aware of, and one of the things that I always feel is that generosity brings us a real feeling of well-being and goodness. We know that giving is part of the 5 ways to well-being. So what I'm going to ask is, while we're in those groups, to be aware of diversity of voice. What do I mean when I say diversity of voice? What I mean is be generous with other people who are in that group, who might not always find it as easy to bring their own truth to a group of people who will already be thinking, oh, I'm a bit nervous, we're going into breakout groups. And then there's other people like myself who hide our nervousness by over-talking, by then talking over people. And so I want you to be acutely aware of yourself and what you are bringing to that space when we go into that group, because that can be incredibly nourishing for you to be in a position of coach listening to their story. And so really engaging with each other's stories. So be ready to kind of listen intently and ask questions and avoid, you know, advice giving. But reflect on what has been above the line for 2020. Now, I know that for some of us, that'll be really tricky because, you know, there's been an awful lot of our experience that actually hasn't been above the line. But what is it that nourishes us? So it's now I'm actually asking you to think about what brings you energy And so when you haven't been above the line, when you've been below the line, what are the self-care things that you've engaged in that you know have actually supported you to become above the line, to actually reach towards above the line? I know that during this year, my above the line and below the line has been like that. The journey of this year has been so up and down. And so I'm inviting you all to actually engage with each other, be incredibly generous, enjoy the beauty of diversity of voice, and bring that to this space. So what I'm going to ask you to do is talk about 3 things. There may be more. You know, some of you might be able to bring more than 3 things, but try to keep it away from family. Try to talk about 3 things that bring you joy, that aren't about relationships with other people, that are actually about the relationship with yourself. So for example, the things that bring me joy: reading. Reading is one. Running is another. And walking is another. And I've got a 4th one, which is yoga. They are my greatest joys outside of the people that are around me. So, and what I would say to you is that, like I say, you know, some people would say, oh, this is, you know, it's positive psychology, it's Pollyanna thinking and everything else. But I can honestly say to you that it is something that gives me and keeps me incredibly strong. As a coach, I would never, ever ask any client to go anywhere where I have not been willing to go myself. And so for me, above the line and below the line is a regular and deliberate practice that I do. So when I'm behaving in a way that feels really incongruent with me as an individual, generally speaking, it's because I'm below the line and I'm feeling lousy, I'm feeling unresourceful, and I might take it out in a direction that I never intended or didn't want to. And so I always get to look internally and ask myself those questions. And what does it feel like to live above the line? Well, that can nourish us in so many ways for quite a length of time as well. So what I will say is I'm going to literally just invite you to do the questions. So if Shane, if you can put us into breakout groups, please. Shane, can you move us into breakout groups, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm just pressing all the buttons. Sorry, just
okay.
I'm trying.
Patience, patience, Hannah.
All in suspense. That's what it is. So I'll shut. Yeah, there we go. Off we go. Yep, Di.
It's going all right, isn't it?
Yeah, let me pause.
Wow, I think that was really interesting for everybody to hear. So I don't know if you want to hand back over to Hannah to share what we've been doing.
Yeah, hello everybody. Hopefully you just you had a bit of time just to think about what it is that we do, or even if not that, I think some people were sort of thinking about what they did before that nourished them. I know our group, we talked about cooking, and our cooking's improved as a result of being able to go and shop for, you know, produce, and walking, playing the piano. And we talked also about music and dancing in your kitchen, you know, maybe with a glass of wine in your hand. We also talked about the kind of the invisible self-care that's about actually establishing our boundaries and putting boundaries in place as well, and knowing and I know, you know, we talk about, you know, I'm the person at the front of the class, and I'm always there putting my hand up when anybody says, can you just, will you, do you mind if, and I'll go yes before I even know what it is. And we talked about actually this time has given us a bit of time to recognize that in some ways we may need to establish some boundaries for ourselves. And what boundaries, by having boundaries, what does that mean in our lives? And I know that as somebody who works on her boundaries constantly, saying no is a really, really difficult thing for me to do. I find, because I've got, from childhood very probably, but I've got an association with saying yes is the kind thing to do. When in actual fact, saying yes and only being able to donate a certain amount of time, or saying yes and then worse than that, resenting somebody because I've said yes, is a real boundary breaker for me. So yeah, we talked about Zumba, we talked about bath, having a bath that we weren't used to having, and friendship and pets, and just taking some time for ourselves. I just wondered if anybody else wanted to pop in with what their group had said. Anybody? Does somebody want to just say what did they? Thank you, Rachel.
Our group, we had a lot of similar things that we discussed. One of the popular ones was gardening, and then the other one was running, and the Couch to 5K app, which I think 3 of us had found really helpful. But only one of us had actually completed it, and it wasn't me. But yeah, we were saying that, you know, we might not ever be runners, we might not ever enjoy running, but we do like the feeling of having been out for a run. And for some of us, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's that just bounces into a story really for me, Rachel. And you know, I know Rachel, so I know Rachel knows this story. But 10 years ago, my middle daughter was diagnosed with a very rare form of bone cancer that was spindle cell sarcoma. And there were times when we were very unsure about her, not only her abilities beyond treatment, but we were told to brace ourselves because the treatment was going to be bad. We were also told to brace ourselves because the outcome and prognosis was unknown. And at that point in time, we chose as a family to live above the line. And that meant absolutely hanging on to every single ounce of our preserve in terms of what did that mean. That meant being incredibly grateful, so appreciative. And running was one of my saviours, Rachel. And not because, I mean, I decided to start running because I'd got 2 legs that worked and my daughter didn't. So I decided to start running as a result of that. But actually, what's kept me running since has been, you know, that idea that actually it's really good for me mentally. You know, it does so much for me getting out in fresh air and beating that pavement. It's a real cathartic feeling for me. Is there anybody else who wants to share their above the line practices?
Yeah, in our group there was quite a bit of sort of the arts and crafts things. I know I started doing paint by numbers during lockdown. One of the other ladies had started doing jigsaws, and I think it's that thing that makes you focus on that particular activity.
Yeah, like concentration, isn't it? You know, that idea that we have to kind of really focus on something that gives us an opportunity to be the presence, isn't it, as well, Jackie? It's like being really present in something.
Yeah, it stops you. It's that thing that stops you worrying, because you're focused on what you're doing, that you're not worrying about other things.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Anybody else? What's been your preservation?
I mean, for me, is that okay if I speak? One of the main things has been to appreciate, look for things to appreciate. You know, if you have to try to keep yourself above the line, so there's something you can do every day. If it's walking, then go out, but when you walk in, actually appreciate what's around you. Don't think, oh, got to go for a walk because I can't go to work, or, you know, whatever it is. Just try to appreciate it. As much as let yourself dip under the line, it's very difficult to pull yourself back up again. So, you know, you have to just look for things to appreciate. It's a new environment, and just look for it. And there's been so many positives, but you have to look. Yeah.
We talked about that. We actually said that, you know, look, and it's one thing that I've always maintained, is that joy, you have to search for joy in every day. That it, you know, it don't come up and bite your backside every day, does it, Caroline? You know, like, we have to actually look for it. And I know that when you talk about appreciation and gratitude and things like that, and they're kind of really like wholesome things. But one of my gratitude practices is actually, when I turn the tap on in the morning, I always say thank you. And I say thank you because not everybody on this planet has running water. And so so that's all you have to do. Clean your teeth, you can say thank you. And that's a real form of like kind of that's a really important part of self-care, is looking for the joy in every day. And so thank you for that, Caroline. That was really lovely. Anybody else before we just move into our next piece? Wendy.
Yeah, hello.
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 You've gone on mute again, Wendy.
Sorry, I touched the wrong button. Sorry. Yeah, we discussed a whole raft of things, really, from jigsaws to puppies. One of our ladies had four new puppies, to doing some athletics, getting back into that, sharing the childcare, which was lovely for some people to take more time with their children, but the majority of us didn't want our children. We wanted them in school, but it was dealing with the mental health of those children, but also enjoying them as individuals, as well, and learning from them as they sort of grew over a year. My own son has grown hugely, physically and emotionally, I think, over that year. In that sort of 15 to 16, they change dramatically. But we talked about leaving husbands as well. So being above the line by not having a husband and having a puppy instead, and all the joy that brings, and getting outside and gardening. And so there was lots and lots of different things, but gratitude came into it as well. I personally got a 3-minute journal that I do, 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes at night. It's that quick, and it is 3 gratitudes and 3 things you're really looking forward to today, 3 amazing things that you did in that day, and then 3 amazing things for tomorrow. So that just keeps me sort of thanking for what has actually happened, because a lot of the time we don't realise what an amazing day it's been. We just think it's another day in this, because it's a bit Groundhog Day-ish. So looking back on the difference in the days, sometimes you've got to look for them now, Hannah, like you said.
Yeah, thank you. I think when you start looking, you see it so much more clearly, don't you, as well, Wendy? You know, like, it's a lot more visible to us when we start taking that bit of deliberate time to actually practice and saying, you know, kind of that this is what I've seen today, and what I've enjoyed, and whether that's been, you know, frost on a tree or a robin or whatever it is that we've been doing. So I'm going to say a huge appreciation to everybody for sharing your above the line practices. Keep practicing, you know, keep going, because it's lovely. So thank you for that today. And I'm going to pass back over to Lyndsay.
Thank you for that, Hannah, and thank you for the work, Helen, that you've put into that as well. You know, it was really uplifting to know that we've all got those skills on how to nourish and stay above the line, but hearing us talk about them and share those experiences, I think it's been really nice. So thank you for opening your mind up to see what's actually there, because sometimes, you know, I didn't really think that the joy that I had from taking a bath instead of a shower, but it's made me actually realise, oh, I should really be enjoying that. I didn't used to have time for things like that. So it is actually changing that mindset about being grateful for the things that we have as well. So thank you very much for that. It's been really enjoyable, and I can't wait for your next sort of section on Flourish. But while we're speaking about how we're feeling and emotions, I think it's a good time to hand over to our poet for this afternoon, Cllr, who's going to share 3 poems with us, I believe. So hand over to yourself.
Hi, Lyndsay, and thank you so much for inviting me to this event. To all the lovely speakers beforehand, Joe and Hannah, thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. And Hannah, I love, taking that time for gratitude, and I really started practicing it, and I can see a difference in my attitude and in the way I approach people and the way I look at life. So that's really good to hear that other people are doing it as well. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your story. And Abby, I can't wait to hear you singing again later. You have a beautiful, beautiful voice. So my name is Cllr Sibanda. I am a poet, and I'm also a broadcaster. But today I'm going to share with you first 2 poems that I wrote beforehand that I think capture me as a poet and the types of things that really motivate me. And then the last one is one that I wrote especially for you guys. So I hope you enjoy. So the first poem, and can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, sounds good. So the first poem is called Arms of Love. Lend me your hand to build a town with rivers of flowers, where going to school without a smile is illegal. Rick and Morty are in the school's curriculum, and the Chuckle Brothers are forever in our hearts, made of steel, united, strong. Let's build a town where hatred and discrimination are distant whispers in the wind, unable to settle. Love and compassion are songs that fill our hearts. We go together like wine and cheese, yin and yang, chocolates and strawberries, dessert before dinner. Let's build a town on water, forever moving, accepting, flexible, without set to stone pessimistic beliefs. Let's build a town on our fertile soil with a rainbow garden, filled with a radiant community, optimistic teachers with youthful minds, graceful police, blessed doctors, liberating elders, all teaching our vibrant youth. Let's build a town on diversity, on encouragement, where we are all equal. It's not the exterior that's important, it's what's inside that counts. Our mother tongue isn't the only language we know, we have sister tongues too. I would like to take children from different counties and teach them my language and watch people's mouths drop as they say, Yegela utando, lube ngamazolo, achithekele janini, edabukabusa. Let our love be the dew droplets falling on the grass every dawn. We all come from one family. Thank you. So that was the first one. The next one I think is my signature poem. So if they were like, if there's one poem that you every time you hear it, you think of Cllr, I hope it's this one. It's called Melanin. My melanin hugs my skin with so much love, it glows. My melanin is my heritage, passed down from my ancestors who once ruled this earth, carving their homes on mountaintops. My melanin is my gift, a symbol of beauty that no one can take away. It reminds me I am molded from the very ground I walk on. I am precious like gold mined by my greatest grandparents who are right here, standing with me to witness their love, their wealth, their commitment to making a world a better place. My melanin is power, not to conquer or introduce hatred in the tongues of my children, but to help them build relationships that sustain a lifetime, relationships that are a lifetime. My melanin is music that invites joy into your hearts and rhythm into my joints, so I can move with grace, with pride, and with love for all beings. My melanin reminds me of my true calling. It reminds me to love and to honor me so everyone can see what true freedom is. My melanin is protection, a doorway to receiving wisdom and gifts from the sun, the true star that brings us life. So I walk with a smile on my face because I am walking gold. Thank you. And I recently discovered something to do with melanin that really made me so happy, is the fact that every person has melanin. Every single human being has it, but we all have it in different shades and different kinds of melanin. And that's why we have all the different skin types. So for me, I feel like this poem, I would like for it to be inclusive, and every human, every race can, you know, use that poem as a way to just uplift them. And the last poem is called Choosing to Challenge, the Journey of a Challenge. For in every journey, there is a challenge we can choose. I choose the journey of challenging my cultural beliefs, of striving to achieve long-lasting happiness through obtaining material wealth, objects, and success. For in my experience, long-lasting, wholehearted, nourishing happiness is a state of being I can create first. And then from that perspective, I can play with the mystery of accomplishing my life's purpose. Challenging myself as a conscious choice allows me to begin this quest with the fierce intention of motivation by love. So each step is a celebration, a success that builds my confidence as I walk my highest path, alongside inspirational footprints of those who traveled before me. I wear boots of resilience for they are steady, as the road may become bumpy with doubt, filled with swamps of hate, hills of happiness, and storms of discomfort, but I still hold my head high. Because to stand as grounded as an oak tree amongst seasoned trees, to fight for air, water, sun, and soil, and survive successfully, I can become the queen of the forest. Choosing to challenge is the realization of power I hold to remove constraints that I and society put on myself. It's an openness to honesty, to truth, to wisdom, the path of contemplation combined with action. It's an invitation I make within myself to the expansion, transcendence, and transformation of my known, personal, and collective nature. It's a gift I give to myself to acknowledge that I am capable of growth. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to share my work with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so heartwarming to listen to your passion and the care that you've wrote, and the poem that you wrote for us about the journey of challenge. I think, again, sharing that experience, it's so uplifting, you know, so we're not alone. I feel that these few hours are actually showing that in great force, that actually solidarity together, there's a quote from Julia, for the founder of Women of the World, would have said, you know, it's really embracing and heartwarming to hear your passion behind that and sharing that with us today. I really do appreciate that. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and I hope you'll continue to enjoy the rest of the afternoon as we go into our next session with Flourish. Again, back to Hannah, and we can all learn how to flourish now we've learned the power of nourish. So over to you, Hannah.
Thank you. And again, I'm just going to ask you to connect them beautiful bones of yours, and I'm just going to ask you to take notice of where you're sitting, take notice of any tension that might be in your body, in your legs, in your face, and just take a real, you know, a couple of restorative breaths for yourself, and just to kind of settle yourself in or wriggle yourself in or whatever it is that you want to do. And I will share the slides again. So in this next section, we're going to think about flourishing, and what we're going to think about as well is, oh, I'm just checking, can everybody see slides again? Give me a quick thumbs up. Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. So yeah, so we're still, you know, staying with that restorative practice, but really it's kind of connecting with what everybody's said already. So we've connected with ourselves in terms of what is it that we need to do in order to feel our best selves possible at any one time. And like you said, we've talked about loads of things, about having boundaries, about giving ourselves time for activities, and even enjoying those really simple things like a bath, and knowing what it is to be grateful about our place here on this earth. And so this next piece really is about bouncing back. And this is another, like, another very familiar coaching technique, which is called reframing. And it's one that I work with quite a lot in a number of different ways. When you get to listen to somebody's story and you get to hear their, what things look, sound and feel like from their map of the world, and you get to join them in there, it's a real privilege. But also the role of somebody like myself is to, to hear that story, but also to offer challenge as well, which isn't always easy. Because like I say, very often for me, the coaching experience is about unraveling those knots and picking apart those, taking out the old bulbs and putting in the new bulbs. And we kind of really talk about what that feels like for somebody and what that experience is. So as we're doing that, and it's very difficult to know what comes first here. Psychologists all over the world argue about what comes first, whether we think before we feel or we feel before we think. What we do know is that we get a trigger, whether that's a good trigger that makes us feel wonderful things and think great thoughts, and then we start to believe those thoughts, or whether it's a negative trigger that makes us feel certain emotions, that then we label those emotions, and then we come to believe those emotions as well. We come to believe what we think. And I know Jo, when in her original piece, talked about her assumptions about other people's experiences as well. But actually we come to believe our own truth. And what is very often the case in coaching is, or very often the work that I do, is enabling somebody to see through the lens, they experience through different lenses, whatever those lenses be, whether they are other people, about relationships, whether they are about organizations, whatever that might be. It's about looking and feeling and experiencing things through a different lens. And that's what enables us to flourish. Because like we say, like we all have pain and suffering, that is human nature. That is the way that it is, but it's actually about our ability to bounce back, and restorative practice is about our kind of bounceability, if you like. So as we're moving to this next session, and you're going to be thinking about reframing and emerging stronger. So it's about reflecting on where we've been, which is the nourishing. What is it that nourishes me? What is some deliberate practice that I might want to think about putting in place? And what thoughts might need to change? Like, are there any beliefs that you are holding on to that are causing you pain? Whether it's about a person, whether it's about a particular relationship, whether it's about a situation. And this can be a bit tricky. Letting go can be really tough for many of us. I know that sometimes I've found it very difficult. And one of my favorite sayings about when I think about relationships, is kind of being able that my thoughts, the person who is suffering as a result of my thoughts about a situation is me. And even when that's about somebody else, it is me that is suffering. And so therefore, changing the beliefs and thinking about things through a totally different lens enables me to let go of some of that suffering. So as you go into this next session, I want you to think about some thoughts that might need to change. What emotional shift would you experience? So if you change the way you think about something, what emotional shift might you experience? How would this change the way that you behave in a particular situation? Would it enable you to step forward with confidence and courage and bravery, or will it keep you small? Because it's about flourishing. So it's about being the best that we can be and growing in stature and strength and all of those kind of beautiful parts of ourselves, and bringing our beautiful best self and being incredibly proud of that beautiful best self. And for me, what I'll always say is go sparkle. You know, when somebody's, you know, kind of got to that place, and I'll say go sparkle. Because if you can bring your sparkle and shine, there's nothing finer than a bit of sparkle and shine. So think of often causes us pain and suffering when it's negative, and it can cause us absolute joy and rapture when it's positive, but it's our thoughts and our feelings. I think I've just, breakout groups. So how will you flourish? So if you just wake up tomorrow morning and the world 2021, so from now forward, was as you would dream it to be, how would this feel? What would it look like? And how would you make this happen? So 3 things there. How are you feeling? You know, like if your magic happened, how would it feel? What would it look like? So that's connecting with the thinking piece of this particular model. And then how would it enable you to show up in the world? So how would you behave? What would other people start to see in you that was different and that was as you would want it to be, that was congruent with your true, and I'm going to say authentic, but I mean your real self, because authentic seems a bit of a rhetorical word at the moment that's just bandied about. So how does it enable you to turn up as your real self and just be true to who you are? So as you move into the breakout groups, again, I just want you to think about that diversity of voice again, making sure that, you know, we enable everybody to bring themselves to the session as they choose to be. And if we can, just again, when you're coming out with the breakout room, if you could think about what you might want to put in chat so that we can pull all that together and really kind of celebrate you know, what we've done this afternoon while we've been in each other's company, because it's been lovely. And so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to be incredibly patient this time, Shay, and ask you to put us into breakout rooms instead of going, Shane, where are you? We are. Thanks ever such a lot, everybody. That felt a really an incredibly personal session for us. So I want to thank our group ever such a lot, because that was just really lovely. And I think one of the things that I just asked everybody at the end was and I said, this for me, this is a really empowering question, and it works for an awful lot of clients, for me particularly, is if you knew that you mattered, what would you do tomorrow to serve that person? So if you knew that you mattered to you, in the same way that you might put other people first. Most of us are really good at putting other people first. But if you knew that you mattered to you just as much as the other people in your life, what would you start doing tomorrow that you're not doing today?
I think you could think about that and perhaps put it in the chat so we can, you know, it might come to you as we're going through.
Yeah. If you pop it into chat. Thanks, Lyndsay. That's really useful. So so we've gone through the if you woke up tomorrow, you know, and again, put everything, put it into the chat, and so that, you know, we can share this experience as well, because that connects us. And you know, and another one of the 5 ways to well-being is connecting. So just to kind of like sort of finish off, really. Firstly, you know, on a personal note, I want to say thank you to everybody and to all of you for being willing to taking part in this space, which for some of us, you know, feels really vulnerable, for trusting your own truth, for connecting with yourselves. But what can you take away? So have a think about that. And maybe it is that simple question. You know, maybe it's the simple question of what would I do for me tomorrow if I knew that I mattered to me as much as the other people in my life? What would I do tomorrow for me? So what can you take away? You know, you will choose what you take away from today, because we do have choices. Self-awareness, you know, taking notice, knowing when you're above the line and when you're below the line can be really, really powerful. Knowing what nourishes you and what and inviting more of that into your life if you possibly can. Again, knowing that I matter, so therefore I need to be nourished. Self-awareness, knowing when I might need to reframe things, when I might need to see things from a different angle or a new perspective. And knowing what enables me to flourish as well. So what is it that enables me to be able to turn up, to be able to show up and be seen every day? And again, like the other kind of coachy thing that we've had going in there today has been about diversity of voice and about bringing everybody's voice into the room. So thank you to everybody for taking part in that. Thank you to Helen. Ellen, wherever you are, I can't see you. So I'm going to stop sharing anyway. But thank you to Helen Smith, and thank you to all the speakers as well, because it's been lovely and I've been able to kind of like bounce ideas and everything off everybody. So yeah, so lovely. Thank you. And thank you, Lyndsay and team, to Shane and Di as well for behind the scenes. So thanks. And thank you. All done. Back to you, Lyndsay.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I know you were in our group, which really helped us as well. So thank you very much for being part of that and showing. And you mentioned in our group about sparkle and shine, and straight away I was like, gosh, yeah, sparkle and shine. That's where I want to be back in the future. I want it to come back, that sparkle and shine. Actually, I think it is in there. I just need to switch it on. Because for so long we've been sat in these little bubbles and working. I think that actually you've opened my eyes again to think, oh, I can sparkle and shine just because I haven't got that contact there. I can do it on my own, and that can be my window out to the world. Can be if I've got that sparkle and shine, other people see it. I've always been very much, oh, and I think that I forgot that at times. I think that a few of us probably thought that as well. So I think it was really inspiring, and it was uplifting. And it was definitely what today was about. So thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Helen, as well, for your input throughout the time. And yes, it is a joint effort. You know, we've been part of it, but Hannah, I know you've taken on the big share to put this out today. So thank you very much for that. We really do appreciate it. Another one of our speakers for this afternoon is Jackie Cook, who's at CQ Strategic Marketing Limited. Now, Jackie's story is about her sort of COVID journey, if you like, through the pandemic, and where she is now, and you know, and the tale that she's got to tell about where she was, where she is now, how she got there, and again building on that theme of celebration and challenge, because it is a challenge for us all. So I'd like you to hear and welcome Jackie to our meeting this afternoon and hear a little bit about what she's got to say. Over to you, Jackie.
Thanks, Lyndsay. So yes, as Lyndsay says, I'm Jackie Cook. I started my own business about 8 years ago. It's probably 9 years ago now. It was 8 years ago at the start of all this madness that is lockdown. So I'd been in business 8 years. I was really busy. Got regular retainer clients both in engineering and a couple of trade associations, because that's been my specialism. I've got a number of pieces of project work going on with myself and my team, my graphic designer and my web designers. I'm part of the team that was involved with planning Get Up to Speed with STEM, massive event at Magna, to get young people interested in careers in STEM. We'd got 3,500 people booked to attend. From that's school children, teachers, parents, businesses, all down at Magna. We were in the final stages of the event. We'd worked our backsides off for months, and it was all coming together, and then we went into lockdown. and it all had to be cancelled, which was gutting, to be honest. So I had quite a drastic drop at the beginning. So having been ticking along really nicely, I'd got plans. I'd always wanted to travel more, so I'd finally got plans in place. So I was going to Milan at the beginning of April with my godson, and I was going to Malta at the beginning of May with one of my friends for my birthday weekend, and obviously it all got cancelled. So it was quite a drop in that mood. So as Hannah would say, I most definitely went from above the line to well below the line quite quickly in that space of that first couple of months. From the end of March, I went from 10 days a month regularly billable in the business to 1 day a month by May, because my clients' work dropped off a cliff as well. So their orders dried up, and it's like, oh crikey, what am I going to do now? Like Joe was saying earlier, I didn't qualify for a lot of the financial support. So I'd good and bad. I'd got rid of my office about 6 weeks before we went into lockdown 1. Which, in case you've not been following all the detailed support criteria, that meant I didn't qualify for one of the grants for the fact that I had an office and qualified for business rates relief. So the support just wasn't there. So I looked at reducing costs as much as I could. Changed my phone contract, suspended memberships, both personally and professionally, cancelled additional software that I didn't need. Chased invoices, obviously, is the next step, which worked really well because that actually led to further conversations with those clients. I think communication's probably going to be one of my key themes throughout this and what's got me through. Both in terms of communicating with my clients and my business world, but also communicating with those closest to me, reaching out for that support when you feel you need it. I did attend quite a few networking events at the beginning, a lot of the online events, but there was an awful lot of talk about pivoting and major changes in people's businesses. And I was actually finding that quite demotivating, quite depressing, because it made me feel like I wasn't doing enough. I hadn't made a massive, drastic change instantly within the first 2 months of all this, and it was making me feel worse. So I actually had to stop doing some of that. I took a bit of time for me at the beginning, sort of around May time. April had been still reasonably busy with some project work, but by May it was really starting to slow down. So I took a bit of time for me. I did plenty of walks with the dog, as we've all mentioned as a therapy, working from the garden where I could, started doing paint by numbers during lockdown. I think you can just about see me on the back wall, one of them, but it was really good for focusing my mind and helping keep me calm and keep me focused on doing what I needed to do, of just keep doing what I'm doing, and I am good at what I do, and it will come back. And it's hard to have that faith when it was quite as bleak as it was at that point. But yes, I chased some of the outstanding invoices, which led to further conversations with those clients, and actually won me some additional project work, which has probably got me through the summer, really, with some of the project work that I picked up, both within my network, so within engineering and construction, businesses that I already worked with, but also the other thing, I was willing to adapt and discount my rates where needed. So I started working with a care business who was providing care in people's own homes. So I was doing some work with them last summer. I also was helping a lady who does life coaching, who she needed to massively adapt her business because she was going from doing face-to-face meetings and monthly events, and obviously that couldn't happen anymore. So we helped move her business online. So we developed online, moved the monthly events online. We developed an online membership with a new website, which all had login details and a lot of resources, both in terms of sort of PDFs, coaching videos, stuff like that. And we're still working on that at the moment, and it's expanding very nicely for her, thank you. But that, by helping her, that helped me. It gave me a project to focus on. It gave me something to do to keep me busy. It kept my skill set in, because it was stuff that I do anyway. But it also it helped in the other way, that by then we'd struck a deal on a rate which she could afford, and meant I'd still got some regular work coming in, which helped keep me afloat. So I was willing to adapt and learn. Regular communication with my accountant has been critical, because we've monitored cash flow. They've been brilliant at keeping us informed of what was available as and when. So whilst, yes, I didn't qualify for support in terms of furlough or some of the grants that were available, we could take the, obviously everybody that was VAT registered got the VAT relief, so you didn't have to pay your VAT for that first quarter. I took payment holidays on the mortgage and car lease for me personally, which just again eased the pressure whilst I got some more work in. And then in September, I finally gave in and applied for a bounce back loan, which has been a huge sigh of relief, because it's just meant I could ease the pressure, know that I was going to be okay for another 6 months or more, and it has just helped keep us afloat. I increased promotion and consequently sales of some of the Leaders and Heels products, which are a bit of a sideline for me, that I have. So the motivational planners and stationery, which I hadn't had time to do much promotion of previously, but back to being concentrated on what we're grateful for, it gave me the time to do that. So I developed some of that side of the business. And then towards the end of last year, started picking up some new retainers. So December got a new retainer in the construction sector. This month I've started on a new engineering client, because things have come back round. And then on the back of that, and on the back of having communicated that I'd won that new client, I've now got another referral, and I've just submitted another proposal yesterday actually, for another potential new engineering client. So things have picked up, and things are very much back on the up, and life seems to be returning to normal. But yes, it has most definitely been a roller coaster of a journey. In amongst all of this, I've had a passion project for a couple of years to try and do more about equality in STEM. So STEM being science, technology, engineering and maths. I've worked in these sectors for most of my working life, and things have moved on. Things are slightly better, but they're not as better as they need to be. So I think when we Hannah posed the question about what would life be like if you woke up and things were different, there would definitely be more equality and diversity in the STEM sectors if I got my way. there is a massive skills gap in the STEM sectors as a whole. We've got a massive skills shortage. There are some of the figures from the Engineering UK report state that there's 124,000 engineers and technicians with core engineering skills required per year for the next 5 years. 79,000 engineering related roles to arise per year. There's an annual shortfall of up to 59,000 graduates and technicians to fill core engineering roles. It doesn't help that most of the sector, certainly in the sort of SME, small to medium sized businesses that I work in within the local area, it's not just a gender diversity issue. It is mainly dominated by white males, it has to be said. And it needs to change. If they opened, you know, I think one of the business cases for diversity has got to be that if we can increase the number of women in the sector, you're increasing your skills market by 50%. So, for example, just to chuck a couple of stats at you. Women in engineering, this comes from the WISE campaign survey from 2019. So in 2009, there was 27,000 women in engineering, and by 2019, there was 50,000. So yes, it's gone up from 5.8% to 10.3%. But that's in 10 years. It's not enough of a change, and we need to do more to change that and to increase that ratio. The other issue isn't just attracting women and girls into STEM careers, but it's also retaining them once we're there. So another statistic that I've come across in one of the surveys is that 57% of professionally qualified women opt out of engineering under the ages of 40 to 45, whereas the figure for men is around 17%. So there's a lot of work to do, I think, around culture change, around supporting women in their career development journeys within these sectors. And on the back of that, I've teamed up with both the web developers that I work with, who obviously operate very much in the tech sector. They're also very strongly passionate about this. One of the guys teaches digital animation at Bradford Uni, and he's seeing the same thing, that, you know, there's very few women coming through on these courses. So we've teamed up together along with Angela, who's on this call as well, who's works in sales and has always worked in foundries and with castings throughout her working life, and she's seen the same thing that the rest of us have, that there's we're very few and far between. So on the back of this, we've teamed up with Get Up to Speed with STEM. They've got a virtual event this year, so they are still going ahead this year, and we're going to be doing a launch event on Friday the 26th of March. I've had a meeting this morning with Heather Clark, who is the Vice President of IMechE and non-exec director of the Manufacturing Technology Centre down in Coventry. She's going to be our keynote speaker. So we're putting that event together at the moment. Then we're going to be looking at running a series of career development workshops. We've got a panel discussion coming up in May about how we attract, retain and develop female talent in STEM. And we've got some major players like Liberty Speciality Steels, Cllr Exhaust, and Jess Soon, who I think is on here, hi, is also going to be on that panel as well, representing the tech sector. And I'm just in talks with Henry Boot to get somebody from there on from a construction angle. So we've got a lot going on. I suppose the plus point, if we're going to go back to the gratitude, is that I've been talking about doing this for the last 2 years, and because I've had less client work on, shall we say, during COVID, it's meant I've had the time to really start pulling this together and start putting the plans together to launch. So, and I wouldn't have had that had we not had the reduction in the daily client work. So a positive will come out of a very challenging year, is my plan.
Thank you very much for that, Jackie. I think that the points that you were mentioning about keeping focus, keeping calm, adapting, learning to think differently about what you do, and knowing that actually you're doing a good job, and you are doing a good job. Everyone that's spoken today have all been doing a good job. So I do thank you ever so much for sharing your time and spending the afternoon with us today. And I hope you've enjoyed the experience as well as I know we have enjoyed hearing you speak about your journey. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'd like to pass over to Joda, if that's okay, to have our president.
Yeah, am I unmuted?
You are.
I've spent so much time this last year talking with mute on. I like to make sure. So, and what an amazing story from Jackie as well. I think both Joe and Jackie, thank you for being just so open, because that is a level of openness and honesty that you don't always get in many forums. And I think that is why the Women in Business group is so special, because people are we are open, and I think it's nice that people feel as though this is a space that is safe enough to have those conversations. So thank you for being so open. I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce for joining us and making today so special and so positive. If you're anything like me, it's a welcomed. As soon as I heard that we were having some live music, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I need. Just to break up the amount of Zoom calls that we've had where it's just business. So this is nice for me to be part of something with some really positive vibes, open conversations that we generally get within Women in Business. Both Abby and Cllr have managed to put many of our own thoughts and feelings into works of art. Your singing is absolutely beautiful, Abby. And Cllr, how you even come up with the wording to describe and kind of communicate the message is just, it's unbelievable. That is an absolute talent. So following on from those positive vibes, I wanted to just highlight some of the positive things that I've witnessed over this last year, which I know has been really difficult for most of us. So as president, I was happy to receive lots of applications for the president's recognition. Now, the reason that I asked for us to look towards some sort of recognition was because I thought it was important that we acknowledge the way that businesses were dealing with the pandemic. But I also didn't want us to pit companies against one another. Because there was so many things going on. I just really wanted us to recognise the amazing things that were going on, and the applications included amazing acts of kindness, some great business and innovation, but also genuine acts of kindness, support, charity, and a lot of activities that I think many businesses would never have done pre-COVID, and probably had conversations with their staff around not just business, but mental health, and asking people how they are may have not been a practice that they were doing before COVID. So there has been some huge positives, I feel, that have come out of this for the business community. Whilst I've been working as, well, I'm a video producer for people that don't know. I'm president of Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the director of Visualised Video Production. And I spend my time going around filming with the crew to make corporate videos and TV adverts and different bits of marketing. So as Jackie has explained, most of my work just fell off a cliff within that first lockdown. I was lucky enough that because everybody was at home, I'd got clients that instantly said, Joda, we need to be on TV. Everybody's at home. Can we get an advert out? But you're not allowed to come and film us. but we've got lots of photos, can we send them? Yes, I was literally making TV adverts on my own, and just adapting the best that I could. And within that space, I've worked with businesses that have done the same, that have adapted really well, changed business models completely. I've worked with companies that have stopped making the products that they've been making for the last 10 years and started making completely different products. What that will transpire to be later down the line, I don't know, but just seeing some really innovative approaches to a very difficult situation. And I've filmed within the hospitals and worked with NHS staff who've gone over and above for all of us, which is, we're spending a lot of time in the negative, but obviously we're thinking about the positive things that have come out of it. As a businesswoman, I've loved learning more about my network. So many of the people that I speak to on a daily basis, I've known for years. I've known them as other people within business, but now I know them even better, and I love that. I've seen them in the hoodies. For example, Andrew. Me and Andrew now have conversations over Zoom and we are in hoodies. It's so refreshing. When you first see somebody, you're like, I've never seen you in a hoodie before. I've seen people without makeup on, they've not had their hair done. I've seen everybody's kitchens, their bedrooms, their living rooms. I've seen them dealing with unruly children, unruly dogs, where they've got dogs jumping all over them. And my 2-year-old has been pulling me, has been shouting me for potty training. I've just spent all my time apologising. But I love that the fact that we've not just been forced to adapt what we do, but we've been forced to open up as well. And I think that's helped make us more understanding of each other. It makes us acknowledge each other as whole people and not just the occupation, which is often what we've done without even realizing it. So we now see each other for not just business people, but we see them as family people or single people, and often vulnerable people that are all trying to work through a really difficult time. So from me, I would like to say to everybody, well done for managing this year. However you've managed it, however well you think you've done it or not done it, just well done. And today marks an extra special day, yes, for International Women's Day, but also no more homeschooling for many people. I feel like that deserves a bank holiday, because I felt for so many people. I've got neighbours that have got like 4 children, all at different ages. They've both been working, teaching subjects they don't even know themselves. So the fact that today even marks for some people, for many, that there's no more homeschooling, I do feel like there's a bank holiday that should be attached to today. So yeah, just I want people to congratulate themselves. And we often talk about International Women's Day, and we talk about the Emmeline Pankhursts of history and the big names that we know, and your Beatrix Potters and your Marie Curies, which are amazing women that have brought us to an amazing place now where we've got so much opportunity. It's brilliant. I just wanted to highlight a few people of names that we don't know, because sometimes it's not about the big kind of revolutionary changes or the people that you know. It's often those little changes and those people that you don't always know about. So just a few. There's a lady called Mary Leakey who discovered the Prochnow skull and footprints, and that showed that our ancestors walked upright, and this is what moved scientists into the study of evolution. So that's a lady I'd never come across, but I've been reading about her recently. Rosalind Franklin, she facilitated the discovery of the molecular structure of DNA. Probably not a name that you've heard of before, but had a huge impact on today. Dorothy Hodgkin developed crystallography, leading to the development of crucial drugs that save many lives. So many of the drugs that we use today, without even thinking about it, were developed through this lady's development of crystallography. And one that you might know is Mary Quant. She gave us the first miniskirt. We've all rocked a miniskirt at some point and just felt absolutely amazing. So thank you to her. But lastly, I'd like us to recognise us. So us as women. I'd also like us to recognise the men that support us as well. I've had many of the ups and downs that we've heard through Joe and Jackie. I've had a very, very supportive partner at home who has gone over and above, running his own business at the same time, and just being flexible the best that he can. And he's had to take Harrison to work with him sometimes, and I've seen what they've been doing, and he's been under trucks. My 2-year-old has been under trucks in overalls covered in grease, but it's what needed to happen so that he could help me out in whatever I was doing that day, and me help him out. So I want for us to recognise us, the people that support us as well. And we may not be making revolutionary changes every day, but we are adding to the world. We're adding to the world around us. We're building businesses. We're raising children. We're shaping our peers. We're asking questions, and we're challenging ourselves, and we're challenging other people. So don't forget to congratulate yourself. Don't forget to give yourself a little bit of acknowledgement, similar to what Hannah has been talking to us about. We have to acknowledge the small things that we do, and acknowledge the place that you have within business, and within your community, and within the world as well. So I'll leave you, because I would like us to get another song in. So I'd really love to hear another song from Abby, yeah. And I know Andrew would like to say a few words, yeah, as well. So my message is keep challenging, but also keep celebrating the small things. And thank you, yeah, for allowing me to be part of your network.
Thank you for joining us, Judd. I think you've echoed many sentiments I'd like to say myself as well, in sharing the wonderful women that we are and gentlemen that have joined us today. I think it's all been inclusive. We've been celebrating a real event that's different to how we usually do it, but different doesn't mean that it's not right. And also, I do have to mention, these are a little pack of seeds that you'll be receiving, and because it's Nourish and Flourish, these seeds, they're a little pack of sunflower seeds, and I don't know if you can see, I don't know where my camera is, yeah, on there, yeah, yeah. And I just think that it would be nice if we could all plant a sunflower seed, so when we see that grow, we can see that we're nourished, we can see that we're flourished, and we can be thinking about this day and seeing how it'll be different in years to come and how it's been in the past. I'd like to thank all our speakers for today, for the encouraging words. You know, the sparkle and shine, I think, has come back into the room today, or it certainly has for me. We've had the life of lockdown with Joanna, we've had her wins from Seal, the flourishing from Hannah, and I just think Jackie's story as well, about how she's sort of gone to herself and said, yeah, I can do this, I am good at this, and it's about embracing that, being good at this. And I think that that's my reflection of the day, to say thank you everybody. We are choosing to challenge. That's what we're about. Women in business, thank you so much for your support. Thank you to everybody that's sort of behind scenes today, because I know you've been flicking on. And also I have to thank Diane as well, who supports me throughout my time as well, and the other women in business. And I just want to thank everybody, you know, for putting together today, because it doesn't just happen. Shane as well, doing all the back scene as well. I don't know if anybody's seen Shane, but he's the one that's doing all the switching, putting in breakout rooms. So thank you to Shane at the chamber. So if Andrew, if you'd like to say a few words before then go into Abby for our final song.
Yes, thank you very much, Lyndsay. I can see Abby's tuning up there and ready to go. So I'm not going to say much more. The people have been thanked, so I'm not going to go down a list of thank yous. I would just want to finish by saying, just as an organisation, as a Chamber of Commerce, those of you who've been around and involved, or possibly even on the periphery, will know that diversity and gender equality certainly in my time as chief executive at the chamber, has been at the very heart and soul of what we as a chamber have done. We've made huge strides, I think, and I hope. I'm delighted that Joda, as president, has agreed to do an extra year in the role, simply because she's just not had the best deal at all this year. She's had all the difficult stuff to deal with, and she's not been able to enjoy any of the nice things of being president. So I'm delighted that she won't be standing down in November this year. We'll be getting an extra year out of her, which means that we also get an extra year out of our previous president, Lisa, and she will stay on the board. So I'm absolutely delighted that we've got both those ladies continuing to support the organisation at the highest level. Just as an aside to that, there will be certainly one and possibly two vacancies on the board from the end of this year. So we are looking for people to continue to get involved. I know some of you on this call are involved with our rep council, and there's always a chance to get involved and influence the work of the Chamber of Commerce. So if any of that is of interest to you, please talk to myself or Joda. And I just think today's, it's been really great to be involved. My little group, we talk quite openly in our little group, and we've created one or two new friendships there. So I think that's enough from me. There's been plenty said by a lot of people, from Joe and Jackie and Hannah and Helen and Cllr, and we're going to finish with Abby. But thank you very much for your everybody's involvement this afternoon, and particularly for the chair of our Women in Business group, for Lyndsay. I know it's not been a particularly easy time for you recently, and I think you've magnificently chaired today's session. So big thank you from me, and with everybody applauding you, Lyndsay, I'm going to now hand over for the big finish from Abby, and to leave everybody on a really high note. So thank you all very much, and over to Abby.
Hi everyone, can we all hear me? Can you hear me okay? Yes, fabulous. I just want to say thank you for inviting me for today. It's been really nice listening to everyone's stories and hearing what everyone has to say. I've been getting involved in the little chat and things like that. I am a singer, and my act is called Viva La Vintage. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and I'm now on TikTok at Viva La Vintage page. And I'm very excited because this song that I've done for today, it's a new cover that I have created especially for this event and for International Women's Day. And I think you will all know it, so you can sing along. It's a very famous song by Shania Twain. So sing along with me and have a lovely afternoon. Here we go. Let's go, girl. I'm going out tonight, feeling alright. Gonna let it all hang out. Gonna make some noise, really raise my voice. Yeah, I wanna scream and shout. No inhibitions, make no conditions. Gonna get a little out of line. I ain't gonna act politically correct. We only wanna have a good time. The best thing about being a woman is that prerogative to have a little fun. Oh, go to the crazy, go get on the lady, thin shirt, short skirt. Oh, really go out, yeah, do it in style. Oh, get in the action, feel the attraction, color my hair, do what I dare. Oh, I wanna be free and feel the way I feel. 'Cause now I feel like a woman. The girls need a break tonight. never gonna shake their chance to get out of the town. We don't need romance, we only wanna dance. We're gonna let our hang down. The best thing about being a woman is the prerogative to have a little fun. I want to be crazy, forget on the lady, short skirts. Really go out there, do it in style. Get in the action, feel the attraction. Color my hair, do what I dare. No, I wanna be free and feel the way I be. 'Cause man, I feel like a woman. But we all have a lovely International Women's Day. Spread the empowerment to everyone you know. Oh, I feel like a woman. I got to think about being a woman. It's our prerogative to have a little fun. Oh, wow, girl, crazy. Forget on the lady, make sure it's not scared. Oh, wow, it's so wild, yeah, pretty nice time. Get in the action, feel the attraction. Whenever I dare. No, I wanna be free, yeah, feel the way I be. Because now I feel like a woman. And darling, baby, say, I say, come on, baby. And let's go, girl. I say, come